Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the I Am 1-2 podcast with your host, Christopher Cohn. As with me always is my good friend, co-pilot, and producer, Dan the Man. Say hello to the folks, Dan.
Hope everybody's doing good out there. Hello.
Thank you, Dan. Boy, are we having a beautiful day here in Louisville, southern Indiana area today. The springtime is always absolutely gorgeous here, so please come visit. I've been to L.A., I've been to Florida, I've been to lots of other places that are nice in their own way, but the greenery in the South is unlike anything else, and especially when it's fresh in the springtime. And we don't get many days like this before the heat turns on, where it's like warm, but there's a cool breeze, and they got white puffy clouds. Did you enjoy this day, Dan?
Oh, yeah, very much so. We don't, no humidity, too. You know, that typical southern Indiana, Louisville area, humidity sets in here in a few weeks, and right now it's not here yet.
Hot and humid, chance of thunderstorms. That'll be our forecast for the next 4 months. So. But welcome to the podcast. If you've never been here before, we are primarily a podcast about recovery from this thing called life, not just addiction, not just all the other issues that people might have diagnosed by some psychiatrist, but just this deal of dealing with life on life's terms. I had an episode of that this week that was challenging. Just to be honest about it, I was supposed to go to my 40th celebration at my home group, and everybody showed up to have a great time. And sure enough, my medical issues showed up and said, nope, we're not going. And in the past, that would have devastated and drove me to a rage of control, fixed man's control, because it's not going my way. And that is one of the greatest benefits. We always say, what's the greatest? But it's up there definitely, about not getting so tore up about crap. It's just another day. It's no big deal. You know, it's as big a deal as you make out of it. So we flowed with it. Luckily, my higher power allowed me to get on Zoom because we're a hybrid meeting. And I got to feel the love, but I wish I'd been there for the hugs. So everybody that was there, thank you for everything. And when I see you, I'll take an extra hug. I appreciate it. 40 years is incomprehensible to me, Dan. I'm sure where you're sitting, you're like, we don't see many people make it that long, right?
You do not. You know, it's 14 more years, or I've been alive only 14 more years than that. Most of the guys we got a whole bunch of guys that haven't been alive for 40 years in our group.
It's true.
You know,
it's true.
40 years is a long time.
I think Charlie or somebody else said I wasn't born when you got sober.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't know, guys. We have a joke in the program. You get long-term recovery by staying sober and just not dying. But I think I was on the front lines before anybody was really doing this. But we have a phrase in recovery called young people do recover. And Louisville's very lucky to have a very deep young person recovery community. But I was in Minnesota at the time doing my treatment. And 22, I'd had enough. We'll talk about that some other time. But change is an interesting beast. People do not change easily, but I went through enough suffering that I was ready for something different. So thank you for joining us today. My background is I'm a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor, board certified in the state of Kentucky. I've got over 21 years of clinical experience, and I also have 40 years of recovery. And plus, I'm an adult child of an alcoholic. So I've had this disease and illness, or isms, if you want to call it that, around me my entire life. And that's what we hope to shed light on, to bring these tools to the world. Because if you're wondering why people are acting crazy out there, it's because we're all in this matrix of sickness, and there's no other tools. People are telling them tools like make more money, you know, eat more shit, you know, buy more stuff, use drugs and alcohol, smoke marijuana now. It's going to be legal. And that's the tools they're giving people, and they're not working, in case you haven't noticed. So just know there's better tools available, and hopefully we can make these available to you too. So today I'm very excited and woke up excited about talking about this topic because about how much it's done for my life and my recovery. But we're going to talk about meditation as a practice, as a toolkit, and how to do it in a realistic, practical way. I'm going to give you some breathing techniques that really work, scientifically proven. And even if you're a strong practitioner of meditation, my good buddy Shane in Aftercare Group today said there are no masters of meditation. It's a practice. There's just practitioners no matter how long you've been doing it. So even if you have a great practice that works for you, I've been encouraged by my sponsor to be open to new approaches because Everybody's my teacher, and somebody might have something new to be able to offer me that I'd never heard before about how to use these tools. It's such a deep and vastly wide topic. There's literally any angle you could take on it. But I'm going to start from my ankle. Yeah, I'll start from my ankle down here. I'm going to start from my angle of growing up in an alcoholic family and where I stopped breathing. It's my belief, as I've observed my patients and people that are coming into recovery from anything, that we as human beings, especially in the West, are not breathing. And that is what's causing illness physically. It's causing us to be mentally ill. And it's causing us spiritual sickness. That is not how children are. If you have children at home that are under the ages of 4 or 5, they've not gone off to school yet, they've not been changed by our institutions, you will find them with their belly going out and up and out, and they don't feel that need to hold it in and look good for others. They're not holding their breath out of fear or fight or flight response. They're just breathing. And the same thing with pets, especially if you have a dog or a cat. Just watch them. Just sit there and watch them chill. And their breath is just natural. And we were all made to breathe like that. And I'm going to tell you, the moment it happened to you, the same way it happened to me, the minute they sent you to an institution and you had to be a part of a class and there were 30 students there and you were not the most important student in the room versus when you were at home and everybody's telling you how wonderful and how amazing everything you do is, when you went to that classroom, the first person leaned over and said, shh. And when that adult did that to you, you stopped breathing because nobody's ever done that to you before. Think about that in terms of trauma that we talked about a couple of weeks ago to a child, where a child just knows, I'm supposed to have fun. I'm here to be alive. Everybody praises me for doing cute things. And suddenly I do a cute thing in church, and the lady in the front row leans back and goes, shh! You'll be serious. We're here to talk about the Lord. These are the little cuts that all of us endured. And then as we went through, especially us men, we learned to hold in our emotions. We learned how not to feel anything, not express anything, especially among your peer group as a teenager, because you didn't want to be accused of being less than a man. And the change, the transformation into the sick people we are takes place. Add on top of that the corporate structure where you're not allowed to show any emotions. This little philosophy they have now that to apologize is to show weakness. It's the exact opposite. A man that can admit he was wrong is a man who has strength in himself. He's not afraid of what other people think of him. But this idea that I've got to be iron-faced, hard all the time, what's that phrase, go hard, crush it, all that crap that they're throwing out there. We are soft-skinned human beings. We're very vulnerable to the environment, but we try to fool ourselves with our ego. Again, it's false teachings. And worst of all, we've had this advent of technology, which has spread up our culture to a point that is so unnatural. I mean, you need to take this in perspective, and we're going to talk about this on the next episode with food. So stay tuned for that one. It's going to be powerful for you, I'm sure. But we were not meant to live like this. We have lived for hundreds of thousands and millions of years on this planet with a certain pace of life. All right? And so if you had lived 100 years ago, chances are if you didn't live in a city, so what we say in 1924, you would have lived in a rural area. You would have been growing crops because most of it was farming and survival. And you would have had a pace of life that was according to the sunset and the sunrise and the chickens crowing, or the roosters, and and the animals and the plants growing and the seasons, and you were in touch with life. And now, like one of my favorite movies, Crash, if you've never seen it, watch it. It's a great movie about human nature. But the guy says the prophetic line in that movie, I think what's wrong with us is we're all living behind steel and glass. And we have to crash into each other to make connection anymore. That's not right. That is not healthy. So meditation is all about taking your breath back, taking that power back, that I'm going to disengage from the external environment. And as I call it, I'm going to take a bit of a mental vacation. And when I'm trying to sell meditation as a tool to my patients, I'll tell them literally, you know how you took alcohol and drugs to get off the planet? You know how you wanted to escape? Well, meditation does the same things without any consequences. I have yet to see any person arrested or jailed for meditation. So pick your poison. You can get high as hell and go out, or you can try this meditation, which is much more rewarding. You know, after a bout of drug or alcohol use, what do you get? You get a hangover, you're depressed, you're down, you got no motivation the next day. After meditation, it's the opposite. You're reinvigorated, you've got new power, you've got new perspective on your problems. All because you did what? Breathe. I'll demonstrate. I was never able to do that as a child. That is power, to be able to reset yourself and not react. I was raised in an alcoholic family system. What's going on in an alcoholic family system? Crisis, drama, tragedy, constant. There is no time for peace. If you have a fragile peace, it gets broken very quickly. Mom and dad make up, now suddenly they're at each other's throats again. My sister would tell these stories about we're sitting up at the top of the stairs while my parents are yelling at each other like banshees and just saying awful things to each other that no parent should expose their child to. But we were awake and they thought we were asleep because that's what people convince themselves, that the kids don't know. And we're at the top of the stairs, and my sister was 4 years older than me, and she said I was sitting there holding my stuffed animal, and she was trying to hold her hands over my ears. And I see that picture in my head, and it breaks my heart for my little kid, about who we were and how I got changed by the environment of this world. That affected me, and to deny that it did is to be in delusion. So, we want to take our breath back. We want to be aware of how we're breathing, particularly throughout the day, and you can do that just by observing when you go to a different environment. I have a friend in the hospital. If I go visit that friend in the hospital, I know for a fact I'm going to start pulling in my breath because I don't like hospitals. They get me sketchy. I'm afraid they're going to keep me or something. I don't like them. I just don't like them. I'd rather be homesick than at a hospital sick. Same thing if you go into the motor vehicle department to get your license renewed or any court building or any official building. Nobody is breathing in there. And that is why the environment and the energy is so tense. Okay? So, as I said with technology, we are like so sped up. Average person, I've heard, checks their email 60 times a day. Now, I guess that's more for people who work for a company that have to do that. But how many times do we check our day for our phone for notifications or for texts or for polos or for phone calls or whatever it is? That fragmented attention, I just heard a study yesterday that has come out to prove it's ruining our ability to concentrate, and they're worried about the youngest children who grew up with this from birth, that they may not be able to focus to concentrate to achieve their best abilities, their best achievements. Because real achievements take focus. I'm working on a book right now. I need to focus while I'm doing that and not looking at this. But fragmented attention, this idea that we can multitask, that's a lie. Human beings were not made to multitask. Human beings were made to focus, and we do best when we can concentrate on one thing at a time. Invariably, what happens when we try to multitask? I'm changing the radio station, I'm watching my cell phone, and I run into the car in front of me. We see all the viral videos all the time. The woman's looking at her phone, and she walks right into a fountain. Now, what's funny about this observation is we can say, oh yeah, I know they're doing it. Oh yeah, I've seen that video, but we can't see ourselves as being caught up in that same matrix of weirdness that has only happened in the last 100 years. This sped up from television, radio to television, knowing what's going on all over the world, absorbing that energy. I ask you, why do I need to know that a gnat farted in South America? And I'll get a notification. Oh, gnat farted in South America. You need to know that. Has no bearing on my life whatsoever. Nothing that's happening in Washington today has any bearing on my real life today and what I'm trying to achieve. We are way too plugged in. And if you think that's not taking a toll on your mental health and physical health, you're not listening to the facts. We have a Paleolithic body. This body was meant to keep us alive, and it will go into a state of fight or flight at the drop of a hat, and the brain will catch up slowly to that. The body sends 80% of the signals to the brain. 80%. So if I put my hand on a stove, my hand's going to go, take your hand off. Oh, okay. So it's not the brain running you, it's the body. So if the body is put under these pressures, I know people in my group who work for a company they can't stand. And they talk about the environment when they walk in there, the negativity, the bright fluorescent lights, which I deny to turn on in my office because I think they're evil. Those aren't natural lighting, guys. All these little pieces are making us crazy. And we're doing nothing to counteract it if we're not doing any meditation or anything to dump that energy, to get that energy off of me. It's like a virus that has infected you. You've got to get it off of you. So take the power back from today's podcast. I'm going to give you some tools that really work. And later on, we're going to do an official, real deal 7-8 minute. That's usually what I do in my group. It's about as much as they can tolerate meditation. And I'm going to invite you with the tools I give you today to try them. Just freaking try them. See what happens to your brain. See if it improves. See if you feel better. That's the only reason I do it. I don't do any tool in recovery that does not make me feel better, because I'm here to get a better life. I'm not here to do things because somebody else told me to do it. I'm doing it because I got a better life. All right, so let's talk about the actual tools a little bit. I was in my treatment center back in Minnesota in 1983, and they made us sit down. They said, now we're going to do a meditation, so just listen to music and breathe. And they did the old in through your nose and out through your mouth, but that really wasn't that helpful. And it doesn't work, because asking an addict or an alcoholic to sit still is asking your diarrhea to stop or something. They just can't. They're very squirrely in their early recovery. They're going through detox, and their brain is on fire, and they can't focus. But we have learned that if you give the brain something to focus on, which is a task, for instance, if I have a puzzle I'm doing, now it may be hard to get the addict to focus to do the puzzle, but if they get into it and they like the puzzle, they will actually get into it and they'll forget about their stress and anxiety. It's the same deal with the breath. You got to give them a particular breathing technique that they can focus on doing better each time they're doing it, which is what I'm going to give you today, rather than just the old in through the nose and out through the mouth. The second thing we've learned through science is that if you do anything, if we cannot control our blood pressure, we cannot control our heart rate. You know, maybe if you're a master of meditation, you can, but an average person cannot. But the one thing we can control is if we're breathing or not, right? And when you mess with the breath, the brain will turn off all other thoughts, because the brain needs that to be alive. Without oxygen, the brain dies. If you have a seizure, you get a concussion and you're out, first question the paramedics are going to ask you is, what's your name and what country are you in and who's the president? Because they want to know how much oxygen you've lost to your brain and whether there's permanent brain damage. The brain starts degrading as soon as the oxygen supply ceases. Now, if you hold your breath a little bit, you still have oxygen in your system. It's not going to happen immediately. But over time, it will die. So I have found with this technique, it quiets the brain from distracting on other bullshit, because you're like messing with the breathing. And it's like, why is he doing this? This isn't normal. He's breathing differently than he normally does. And that seems to be the key. The novelty of it distracts the brain. So, but again, I sat in that treatment center and they taught me how to do it, and I couldn't do it. And I was convinced that I couldn't do it. And I had this weird idea, you know, most Americans do, that meditation is associated with yoga, and which it is in the past, but this very exotic thing where you have to burn incense, which I do like, or sit in the lotus position, which is not true. It's really actually more ideal if you sit in the most comfortable position you like. I want to really break that fallacy for you. When I meditate, I kick back in my office chair and I put my legs up on the desk stretched out. And that's my most comfortable meditation position right now. I love it. It works for me. So you got to find the one position. The second piece you want to do before we start the actual tools is you want to find the kind of music and or nature sounds that really work for you. YouTube is such an amazing resource, because we will talk about all the different types of meditation in a minute. So you can get all these different, from guided to visual to transcendental, and all these different approaches to meditation. But you can find all kinds of music and chill resources. I will tell you particularly if you can find a nature sound that appeals to a good memory that you have. And for a lot of my patients, that might be the beach. They love to hear the ocean waves, and it might remind them of being a kid and being on vacation. Some people prefer the sound of the crickets at night around a bonfire. I like that sound myself. But particularly my favorite sound is rain, which is what we're going to play today, which is called some brown noise. They have these different noise frequencies. There's white noise, pink noise. If you want to go through Spotify or Apple and try different ones, that's what I do. And when you find the one that's like, and it's right in that spot, there's like an ad on TV now for this app called Calm. I don't want to try and sell it, but I like the sound they play on the ad. It's like, oh, it's a green noise. It's really actually pretty good. They say it's been scientifically proven to relax your heartbeat and blood pressure. But when you find that one, first of all, I recommend highly bookmark the page before you do your meditation. I've had more than one patient and friend of mine in the program who said they found the perfect music, perfect sounds, and they did the meditation and they closed their browser before they saved the page and they could never find it again. So that's the first task. Let's find some sounds that work for you, okay? And that's very personal. Some things get on people's nerves. Some people like certain sounds. So you got to find what works for you. Secondly, set the environment. We have our candles here. I love candles. Always have. It's a great meditation sometimes just to stare at the flame of a candle. You know that primal feeling when we used to stare at a fire when we were living in caves? Well, we do that with a TV now. But you can actually just stare at the candle flame and just watch it dance and move around and make it move around. And it's very mesmerizing. Smells. I cannot say enough about smells, especially if it's associated with a good memory as a child. I like the smell of fresh cut cedar. I think it reminds me of the time we lived in a neighborhood where they were doing a lot of construction, and we used to go play in the property when we should not supposed to after the workers would leave. And we get fiberglass itching and stuff like that from messing around where we shouldn't be messing. But it's a good memory. Vanilla tends to be a good memory for men, especially to relax, like grandma cooking cookies for them. So incense, essential oils. I encourage you to go to a Whole Foods or a place where you know you're getting like real essential oils, preferably from the United States, not this synthetic stuff you might find from overseas. It's just different. And experiment. You'll be amazed how you can relax. It's all about what's going to settle me down in my seat enough that I can just be present for a couple of minutes without having to jump immediately. And when we do the meditation, notice that about yourself, how you do have those impulses. Like, I'm supposed to do something. I'm supposed to check my cell phone. And just challenge it. You know, they say, my favorite teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, he's a Vietnamese Buddhist priest. I'll say it again, Thich Nhat Hanh. He talks about, you know, how when you have these distractions when you're meditating, just smile and nod at it. Don't get mad at it. Don't get frustrated. Just smile and say, I see you. I hear you. I know you're there, but I'm not going to let you take me out of my chill. So that's the thing. Set the environment, get the candles, get the smells going. Make sure you're making it a special thing for yourself. I've got incense that I've been using since I first got sober. If you want to, I'll put a shout out for them because I love this company so much. It's called Spiritual Sky. It's out of New Zealand. I've tried to buy it off Amazon. There's a few available, but I worry about how fresh it is. So I'll order it straight from New Zealand. It's a family business, very small. You'll see great pictures on their website. But if I burn that incense, it takes me back to my earliest recovery, and I can immediately go into the chill just from smelling frankincense or whatever. The Om is a really good scent that they have. So find the ones that work for you. Have some fun with that. That's the first piece. All right, now let's talk about breathing. First, I want you to be aware over the next few days, how are you breathing in different circumstances, particularly around certain people. Notice who elicits your parasympathetic response, which is the response we do before we fall asleep, where we do a sigh and we relax into sleep. Notice who encourages you to breathe more deeper and to relax, and notice who tends to make you sort of pull back and throw up your defenses and sort of... And as I've been taught by breath coaches, if we're breathing like that throughout the day, we're sending alarm bells to the body, which is then going to send a warning to the brain that we're in danger. And it releases cortisol. It increases inflammation in your body, increases free radicals, which do damage to your cells. This is real science talking about how we breathe can affect your health. And you can look up a bunch of great videos about that on YouTube. But that's the first step. Set your environment. And then what you want to do is be aware of your breath for the next few days. Just watch how you breathe in certain circumstances at the office, when you go to the grocery store, when you're driving and the traffic is crazy. And notice if you're able to pull yourself back from that and use this technique that I'm about to give you right now. All right, so let's get right into it without any further ado. So first I'll talk about what the tools and how to do it, and then we'll do the actual meditation. So we take a little pause again if we need to. All right, so when we're breathing in through our nose and out through our mouth, and sometimes people get confused with that methodology, so the Buddhists have a great reminder. They say to smell the flowers and blow out the candle. Smell the flowers blow out the candle. Now, there is a trick, and if you will do it this way, I found it to be the most effective and easiest to learn, and you can do this technique anywhere you are all throughout the day. What you want to do is you want to take a breath in through your nose, and then pull your lips very tight together so there's only the smallest of openings for the air to escape. So it's almost as if like you're blowing a trumpet, or as if you're blowing up an inner tube or a balloon when you were a kid, remembering the air would not go in there easily. What we're looking for from that technique is if the air is restricted and it's being blown out slowly with you pushing it, what will happen is your muscles in your chest and your muscles in your gut will tense up harder to push because the air is not getting out easy. So, for example, I want you to do this experiment at home for a minute. Take a deep breath and try to blow out as hard as you can with your hand in front of your mouth, blocking all of the air. Now, I know it looks funny, but you know what's happening? The air is not getting out, and because the air is not getting out, these muscles are pushing, and it's almost like an isometric exercise. So what will happen is, as I release the air slowly, that knot we have in our gut that we take home from work every day, we take home from living in this world every day, from being in traffic, all the things we have to deal with, that will start to release. Like you're letting air out of a balloon. And you will settle down into your seat. Notice how your whole body, your shoulders, and everything will start to settle as you're slowly pushing this air out. So let me demonstrate for you. I take a breath in, and I push it out like this. Now, the science behind this is confirmed science. This is what we do before we fall asleep. Not exactly like that, but we want to extend our exhale breath to increase our CO2 levels in our body. When you increase CO2 in the body relaxes. It's a very strange thing because we want oxygen, right? And they tell us CO2 is probably not good for us, especially if it's carbon monoxide or something. But it's the opposite. When we're breathing too much oxygen, we'll get a panic attack. That's what people do when they have a panic attack. They're getting too much oxygen in their body, and it's causing alarm bells to go off. But increasing CO2 through your exhale breath, extending your exhale breath longer than your inhale breath is the trick to getting yourself to start to relax. In addition to this not being unwound from that slow release when you're breathing out. Now, that's enough for you to concentrate on when it comes to breathing, to give your brain something to do. Am I doing it right? Am I breathing right? How am I doing this? I haven't done this before. If you just do that, that will distract the brain because, like I say, you're messing with the oxygen supply. I'm going to give you a couple of extra techniques. While you're blowing out, imagine you're blowing out cigarette smoke. Or I have some patients who will visualize like purple or pink smoke, or whatever viruses you picked up during the day, that energy that you feel is inside of you from somebody who was an a-hole to you today, and you know it's still inside you because it still bugs you. Imagine you're pushing them out as if it's an infection. So when you're releasing your breath, I want you to imagine you're pushing out all the stresses, everybody that got on your nerves, everything you read in the news. You're like getting it out of your body, that it's a real poison. Now, I want to explain to you a little bit about this energy transference because this is real stuff. I had the most powerful experience with this a few years ago. I was backing out of a parking space very slowly, and I mean I was going slow as a mo can go, but I couldn't see over the SUV next to me. And I got about a little bit out, and here comes this gigantic black truck flying through the parking lot, and he laid on his horn, you know, the way people do. And I was like, oh, you son of a... It was totally unnecessary. I was not even near him. I was going slowly, and he overreacted completely, but he's pissed off. So he's going to pass that pissed off energy to me. Well, I didn't know I had been infected. So I got in traffic, and suddenly this guy's getting on my nerves, and I'm driving more aggressively, and I'm like cutting people off myself. And I'm realizing, oh, crap. That guy just changed my mood, and now I'm passing it on to the next guy. It makes total sense. You all know what it's like to be around people that have good energy. And you want to, like we have a good friend of ours named Darren. People love Darren. He's got good energy. You want to be closer to him. And we also know people that just turn us off. Well, they can infect us. And just by being there, by proximity, if you're in the same office with them, you'll pick up that energy during the day. So that's what I'm talking to you about, releasing. Let's release that energy in that imaginary black smoke or whatever you want to imagine you're pushing out. It really doesn't matter what you imagine. But I want you to think of the things that you want to dump. I want to dump this today. I want to get rid of what they told me about politics and about the stupid election and about the stupid economy and the world order and the fucking wars. I don't want to talk about any of that. I just want to get it out. So breathe it out. Push it out. Now, when you get to the end of your exhale breath, last step, push out every last thing you got. So I'm going to breathe out. And then when you get to the end of your breath, try to push it all out. Now, I tell my peeps, if you're a smoker, this will make you cough, and that is a good thing. If you start coughing like that as a smoker, you will suck air into parts of your lungs that maybe have not had real good oxygen for a long time, because that's what smoking does. It cuts off your capillaries, and you're not able to breathe as deeply as you used to be able to. But the great thing it will do is it will deplete that breath enough that when you take the next breath in, I want you to listen to your brain for a second when you do that. Just off the first breath you do. Listen to your brain and listen how quiet it is. Remember, I told you, if you're messing with the breath, the brain will shut up. And I am astounded how identical. And for all my addict and alcoholic friends out there, please take this to heart. You've got to try this experiment with us today. It is the same as taking a hit of Jack Daniels, the same as taking a hit of heroin, or whatever your favorite is. It's the same quiet. For just a second. And then notice right after that how quickly your brain starts chattering and going, oh yeah, you still got to pay rent. Oh yeah, I got this thing going on. Oh yeah, your family's pissed at you. So then, like I said, nod and smile at it. Say, I hear you. I know what you're saying. But I'm just going to breathe you out and then push that out, push them out, push that stuff out. Take that next breath in. And I want you to just try it. Please, I beg of you. We're going to do it. I want you to do it for about 3 or 4, 5 breaths. However long you want to do it. And then when you feel that you're starting to settle in your seat and get a little relaxed, then just go to your normal breathing. When you feel like your breathing is finally down in your belly and you're starting to just relax, let it go to normal breathing. If at any time it starts to chatter again, start back with the technique. Now, I'm going to give you all one last technique. If you're really pissed off today, if you want to get a rush to your head of oxygen, and it's great, you can do this. And I mean, blow that out as hard as you can. And then next breath in. It's impossible to think of anything else. I can't think of anything else going on in the world at that moment because my brain is going, what are you doing? Now, I know it looks weird. My patients always make fun of me. I really don't care. If it helps save a life, that's what matters. And I'm going to tell you, I have had more patients than I can count come back and tell me that this was the number one tool that changed their life. And I will go on record and tell you that if I had been taught these tools as a child, my entire life on this planet would have been different, and I might not have been a drug addict. I might not have never touched it because I wouldn't have had to. So if you have children, I'm going to beg of you to please teach them meditation tools. It'd be the best tool you'll teach them to set them up in life because they won't have to react. They'll have their power and they'll have that ability to breathe under any circumstances, and they won't be susceptible to other people's influence, especially their peers as they're growing older. They can take a breath and think first before they act. Most teenagers get into trouble by acting first and not thinking. It will change their entire life. I kid you not. By the way, YouTube has an amazing amount of children's meditations on there. And my patients who will take their children through it, next thing they'll tell me is their 4 or 5-year-old is walking through the door with a blanket and their little Pookie Bear saying, Mommy, it's meditation time. Let's do meditation. And the parent is always like, what? They like it. I had a teacher who teaches special needs kids in my class today. And I said, have you ever considered trying this? And she said, oh my God, it never occurred to me. Yes, I'm going to do that. Well, this has been studied. I'll say one last thing about it. Los Angeles school system put meditation tools into the worst schools in the county. And I mean, the worst schools. They were having people getting murdered and horrible things happening at this school. Every 5 minutes, the kids were not settled. They're getting terrible grades. They're not doing well. And they did meditation for 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes before they went home. And everything changed. The behavioral disruptions went down to zero. Like zero, folks. This isn't a joke. This is real. You can look this up on Google. And their grades went up, and more graduations happened. It changed their life. And if you wonder what's wrong with our youth, we're not giving them any tools. We used to live in tribes where we would look out for our kids and teach them tools for life. We're giving them tools like, here's a tablet, deal with it, figure it out, look it up on Google. That's what I got. Nobody taught me about sex or anything. It was like, figure it out. We don't talk about that in our family. So please try it. One last time I'll demonstrate, and then we'll get into the actual meditation. You want to get in a comfortable position, whatever works for you. Get settled in your seat. Turn off all your phones and distractions. That really try to be present for 5 to 10 minutes. That's all it is, coming to the present moment, because that's all we have. Take a breath in. Push it out. You notice as I'm pushing, my whole body is like relaxing down. We aren't even aware how much tension we are carrying in every fiber of our being from living in this world. Then when you get to the end, push the last out as much as you can. Next breath in. Do that 4 or 5 times, and then just breathe normally and see if you can get into the zone. All right? So we're going to play a brown noise today. It's one of my favorites. I hope it translates over the microphone. It almost sounds to me like a rainforest with a heavy rain, and you're in the middle of it in a little hut. So we'll do that for about 8 minutes or so, and or less. It depends on what happens today. And just be present. Try to see what happens. See how uncomfortable it is just to be present for your life for 1 minute. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the present moment on the backside of this. So once more, comfortable position. We'll get the music queued up, and let's try this little experiment with me and Dan today. We'll get into the zone with it. All righty, let's get started. So when you're coming out of it, take your time. Do not jolt yourself out of your meditation. I meant to get ahead of it and turn the volume down slowly. It's usually what we do in group. Just ease out of it. Now that you got relaxed, don't wake yourself back up yet. There's actually no tools for meditation to do it right. It's all about what works for you. And a lot of my patients will be concerned and say, well, I fell asleep. And I'll be like, great, then you must have been very relaxed. Dan and I joke, there's a very fine line, if there's any, between a good meditation or a good nap. But I want you to notice if you feel better, if you feel refreshed. You notice how my voice is a lot more chill just from getting that energy off me that I usually am not even aware I'm carrying, because we all just walk around with this general anxiety we think is normal. So take your time, rub your eyes, stretch a little bit. Now, when you're practicing these techniques long term, what you're looking for, and this is the pinnacle of meditation as I've experienced it, everybody might have a different word for it, but I call it the cocoon. So first I'm doing my breathing techniques just to settle down, and I've gotten to a point where, like I say, you can take this to the grocery store and you're in line and the lady up front has her checkbook out, but she has 80 bazillion coupons, but one of them's wrong and she's arguing with the cashier, and 10 minutes goes by while your ice cream is melting. It's a great chance to go. And people don't even have to know you're doing it. You don't have to be as overt as I'm doing it there. But it's a lot better than losing your mind on somebody who doesn't deserve it. So practice the breathing technique to get you to settle down. Then you go to your normal breathing, which you might have noticed I did. I just didn't have to do them in through the nose, out through the mouth. I just went back to regular breathing. Then eventually you want to pass into this zone where suddenly you just lose track of time. You fade into this place where it's very warm, it's very comfortable. I call it almost like your mother's womb, and I call it the cocoon. But it just feels so good that you don't want to leave it, and eventually your meditation, you'll come out, and then you go back into it. With this brown noise recording I have, it's 10 minutes, so when it loops, it's a great reminder for me to come out and be present in case I am falling asleep, and then come back to the meditation. And plus I get excited because I have more time when I can chill, because I usually go for about 45 minutes. That's a good meditation for me. And I wasn't able to do any of that prior to recovery. I was so completely consumed by nervous energy and anxiety and fear that my home group said I was moving 10,000 miles an hour and not flinching a muscle. They told me that later when I went to visit them. Say, man, you were in early recovery. We didn't think you were going to make it. I've gotten that mastery back that I always wanted. I haven't met an addict or an alcoholic yet who I've asked them, do you hate losing your cool on your family or your loved ones in public? And how many of us as addicts and alcoholics have episodes where we said something and did something in front of other people in a restaurant or something because somebody got under our skin and they had control of us at that moment, and I could not resist reacting? To me, as a child in an alcoholic family system, I call it the pinball effect. You just shot me out of the chute in the morning, and that pinball was going to bounce off the first thing and then bounce into the next thing with the energy I took off that, and then bounce into the next thing, so that by the time I got to work, I was already ready to pound somebody. I was so keyed up. And if this stuff could work for me, I promise it could work for you. And it's so simple. If I'll just put a little work into it. I make a promise to my patients. Generally, it's 20 to 30 sessions. Can be more, can be less. But I tell them, if you will just do this meditation for 8 minutes every morning, Monday through Friday, not even Saturday and Sunday, for 20 sessions, by the time you finish, you have trained your brain that the only time I do that kind of breathing is when I'm safe. The only time I do that kind of breathing is when I'm chill. So that's how you condition the brain, that when you go into that, my brain already knows, okay, I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm okay. Okay. All right, let me talk for a second to wrap it up, and then I'll get Dan the man in here because I know he's experienced. He's a yoga instructor, and he's experienced a lot of deep meditation practice. Two things. One is check out all different forms. My friend Travis was talking in Aftercare about guided meditation and how that really worked for him. He likes to hear somebody's voice take him on a journey. I get uptight. Sometimes I don't like people's voices. I'll be chilling to the music, and then all of a sudden they go, take a deep breath. And I'm like, oh my God, stop. That's just me. Some people like the meditation, guided meditation. But look up on YouTube all different forms, and you'll find the thing that works for you. Now, in the present moment, this is all we have. We're not aware of this. There's a great Zen philosopher named Alan Watts. He was a genius in the 60s to bring Zen practice to the States. And some people have called him a Buddha of the practice that he brought and changed so many lives with that. You can find him over YouTube, his teachings, and he has tons of books. He's no longer with us. But the thing he talks about that really turns me on is this philosophy of the eternal now. That there's a moment in time that is taking place right now that is never going to repeat itself in your life. You're never going to get this moment back. Let's say it's 4:15 on Wednesday, May 30th, 2024. You're never getting this one moment of your life back. And he says that's all we actually have. Everything in our past is imaginary. It just exists in memory. It's not real. Everything in the future is projected, and we don't know what's going to really happen, so it's wasted energy. But this present moment here is the eternal now, and it has existed since the beginning of the universe. And I have a way where I can align myself through this breathing and bring myself out of the matrix that everybody else is in. When I call it the matrix, I mean literally. Your coworkers are losing their mind. I work in a mental hospital. That happens a lot. There's chaos. There's patients going off. There's alarms and codes being called and people being wrestled to the ground. You name it. It is an insane environment. And I can still pull out of the matrix, detach, get my center, and be more effective. And I had a nurse, our oldest nurse on staff, praised me a few years ago. Maybe it was last year. I forget when it was. She said to me, "You're always so calm. And just you being here, I feel better every day, just you being here." And I was like, well, that's not the person I was before recovery. I was the guy that you didn't want to invite into a crisis. I would make it worse. I would make it about me because I'm a screw up. I'm a drunk. I'm a drug addict. So if it can change me where I'm getting compliments like that, I know it can work for you if you'll just try it. That's all you got to do. I'll tell you one last parable I heard about this now that has always stuck with me over the years. If you're in traffic and you're at a red light and you're waiting to turn left because the green arrow is on and the guy in front of you is dawdling and he needs to go, but he's afraid to go because he doesn't want to get in cross traffic, Some people are a little overly cautious and you're sitting there going, go, 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 go. Because if he doesn't go, the light's going to turn red and then the light turns yellow and you're like, go, 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 because the other traffic is stopping and he's still afraid to go and he doesn't turn left. And you lose your ever-loving mind in that moment. You start beating on the dashboard. You start yelling. You start going, because you got to wait for the whole cycle of the light to change. The Buddhists say at that moment, that person was your Buddha in your day. And what that person did for you is they brought you out of the dream world, of the matrix, of whatever life you were thinking you were living. You were thinking about something from the past. You were projecting what you were going to do later that day. You're worried about your dentist appointment 2 weeks from now. It's not real. It's a fantasy world. The Buddhists believe that the West exists in this dream world that doesn't exist and that we're never present for our life. But what that guy did is at that moment, he thrust you back into your own mortal skin and into that present moment where you were completely aware of every single thing going in that one moment and you were in it. And then you went right back to your dream world. That's what a Buddha does for you, even though we don't recognize it as that. It's a hard concept. We are a culture that's always planning and looking ahead. But I joke about that shit. When people ask the question, where do you expect to be in 5 years? I would love to ask an interviewer, where did you see yourself doing this 5 years ago? Honestly. How about 5 years before the economic breakdown in 2007, 2008? Did you see that? Did you see the planes hitting the towers in 2001? Did you see the pandemic? Did you see that happening? It's the stupidest question anybody can ever ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? It's dumb. It doesn't exist. So, the eternal now. Breathing is the way. Check your breathing. See if you're relaxed. Taking a breath of oxygen every now and then. And please teach your children. I will tell one last story because I always got one last story, but it's really vital that you hear this. It was really impactful for me. I encourage my patients, if you can't meditate, that means you can't sit there and watch a sunset or you can't watch the ocean waves. You can sit still. I tell them if you have a pet, hold it on your chest and try to follow their breath. That works for a lot of people. But I need to tell this story because it was just amazing for me. We're in our meeting one night, and this woman comes in. She's obviously new, and she's in a front. I mean, she is in a burning desire state. You could feel it before we asked, does anybody have a burning desire? And she opened up and she started screaming at the group that she's losing her mind. Early sobriety is the worst thing ever. I can't deal with my feelings. I got all the stress at work. Everything's going wrong in my life. And she's like, I'm just going to go out and get a drink right now. I can't take it anymore. And on top of all that, I have this brand new puppy that I love, but the damn puppy is running up and jumping on everybody and won't sit still and is peeing all over the carpet and is out of its mind. And it's basically reflecting the state of mind she was in. And I don't know what to do. And she shut up. And we bravely, it sounded like she wanted some help. It's not crosstalk if you keep it on yourself. That's a rule of recovery. If you use I statements like, well, I tried this or I do this, you're not telling somebody what to do. You're just offering your experience. And we said, prayer works pretty good in situations. Do you have the higher power thing? Of course, she didn't have that yet. She thought we were crazy. And one of the old timers, and it might have been me, I don't know who said it that night, but they said, well, why don't you try this? You said you had trouble praying. Why don't you take that little dog when you go home, hold its face in your hands, and just look in its eyes, and say a prayer, whatever is on your heart, to your higher power that you don't think is there, but just say it into the dog's eyes with love. Just how much you love that little dog. Just say it. It couldn't hurt. Well, you would have thought we told her to jump off a bridge. She was offended. You could tell she shut down hard, defensive. And we let it go. I mean, everybody has their own journey. She's going to do what she's going to do. She disappeared for 3 weeks. Usually that means relapse. 4th week, she comes back to group. She looks completely different. She's put together. She's not disheveled. She's not frantic. She's calm. She's happy. She's smiling. And she couldn't wait to share. And she shared, well, when you all told me to do that stupid tool, I was so pissed. I was headed to the liquor store, but I was so mad, I figured, well, I'm just going to do that tool just to prove those people wrong because I don't believe it's going to work, and I'm just going to do it to just show them I did it, and it didn't work. So she did it. She went home the first day she did it. Not that much changed. Went home the second day she did it. Not much changed. But she's been doing it since we last saw her. And she started talking about how much her life has improved. Work is settling down. Her feelings are more manageable. Stress is easing on her. Her life is going better in recovery. And then she said the best thing of all. And the damn dog has stopped jumping up on everybody when they come in the house, is calm, and has stopped peeing everywhere on my carpet. Now, if you don't think this stuff works, if an animal can get benefit from meditation, think about your animals around you when you get stressed out. If you're an addict or an alcoholic and you've had arguments when you were using, watch your animal when you have an argument in sobriety. They will go hide under a table. They will lower their head and go into the other room. They know. They feel that energy. Energy transference. Remember that. Breathing is a way to change your energy, and people will want to be around you. So, Dan, I know you're a great meditator / napper. And you can really chill out in any environment, which is pretty exciting. Not many people can do that. What was your first exposure to meditation?
Boy, my first time meditating, when I first came into recovery, people were using the word, right? I was lucky enough to run into a guy who was big on meditation. Not everybody is, right? But this guy was. And he started working with me on... But at the time, I just didn't have it in me to sit still. I will tell you, I couldn't do it. It took some time and it took some more pressure before I would actually put it into place. It was another one of these things like a la carte, 12 steps. Okay, I'll do that. I'll do this, but this here, my mind races too much and I can't do that, But then I left, I relapsed. And I was afraid to come to AA. I was joke around like when we were kids in Cub Scouts, if you get this little card that let you carry a knife. and they would cut a corner off of it every time you were abusing your privilege for carrying a knife. And if all 4 corners got cut off, then you couldn't carry a knife again until you went through the little spiel to earn the card back. And I thought, when that happened, I thought I had lost all 4 corners on my AA card and couldn't go back. And I seen this guy who had sponsored me in the past was having a meditation meeting in his house. And my first exposure to it. And I was able to get, actually the first time I pulled up, I left. I didn't go in. And then the next time I went ahead and walked in. And because I could go to a meditation meeting, but I couldn't get myself in an AA meeting. And of course, 90% of the people that was in that meditation meeting were AA people, were recovery people. And I sit there and I learned to meditate in a group session. Really was the beginning of it. One thing is like peer pressure worked for me, because everybody was going to sit down for 20 minutes and meditate, and I didn't want to stand out. So I sat there, and some days I sat there and, nothing happened. Some days I fought it completely through, and so did this gal that was sitting here, and we'd go around and share afterwards, and she would say, I didn't get shit today. And that gave me permission, this whole thing. I started with that group setting of people that wasn't, I don't have to do it perfect either. She doesn't. She's 25 years sober, and she just blew this whole meditation.
No expectations.
I can do that too and not get in trouble, or not get in trouble, but just not. And that's, it's like a lot of things. It's a practice, and I think it's probably one of the most neglected things in the 12 steps.
I agree.
A lot of people won't take the time, or too busy, like you said, my little tagline. I got a lot going on. I don't have time for that. But there are so many tools out there. It's coming. There's a resurgence in it, just in the time that I've been sober. Of it being, like you said, all over YouTube. There's a half a dozen apps I could Headspace, Calm. Sam Harris has Wake Up or something like that. I can't remember. There's a whole bunch of people that have meditation apps, and it's just like when we talked about passions a few weeks ago. Dip your toe in the water. Try this and try that and try this, and make notes of what works for you, and don't do the ones that don't work for you.
Most apps will let you try it for free.
Yep, they will. They'll give you a trial. And like you said, YouTube, I had a lot of success early on with the guided meditations too, because that voice telling me what to do. I feel like I have 2 channels, 2 distinct channels, maybe more, but there's 2 of them. And if I will engage both of those channels, then I can get to that point of stillness. And so listening to a noise will take up one channel, and concentrating on my breathing will take up the other channel. And I still find that to be, although today, honestly, most of my meditation happens in silence. I sit back.
The birds.
Just the ambient noise that happens to be there. I'm usually not playing anything anymore. And I do take a few minutes of stillness every single morning, and it only looks like maybe 10 minutes of meditation in the morning. But perfect. That other thing, another analogy I used, old Tasmanian devil. That's the way my life was, from the bed to the coffee machine to the bathroom to through the shower, back to the coffee machine, and shoot out the door. And by having that 10 minutes of silence in the morning of just sitting still awake, it completely changes the pace of my day from there on out.
Mm-hmm. And I'm mastery of the pace of my day. My day isn't setting the pace for me. Right. That's the difference, right?
Yep. There's benefits, like you said. Anytime I find myself stuck in life, where you're at the grocery store, or you're sitting in the doctor's office, or you're waiting in the car line to pick up your kids from school, or any of those places where you have that spot where you're stuck sitting still for a minute, I employ meditation. It's the number one thing, and it's not, I'm not wound near as tight as I was in the beginning, but in the beginning I was that I really needed to do, because I'm coming out of my skin waiting, when are they going to come out of the damn school? Looking at the clock, just sitting there vibrating, same thing you do in the grocery store line when that lady does that deal with the checks and the coupons. And the same thing when you're sitting in the doctor's office, and you're like, hold on, I was here before that person.
I know.
Why are they going in,
And why did you tell me to be here 15 minutes early, and you're going to make me sit another hour?
Yep. And meditation makes me be able to walk through those things. It also, that I was listening to a podcast today, and it said, some paraphrased, we all have this moment between a stimulus and our response, and we call it a pause. I call it my pause button in recovery, where it says pause when agitated or doubtful. I think that's the same thing. And having a meditation practice makes my pause button more powerful. It's more easily to engage, where I don't just go from stimulus to reaction. I can go boom and just say boom. I think of the big staples, the big red staples button that people have on their desks that they hit. That's why I've got a great big red one in there in my imagination, and I can hit that pause button quickly today. And I credit it to meditation. I don't waste time. I don't waste time getting to sleep. I don't waste time trying to take a nap, because my meditation is what shuts me down and gets me to my sleep quicker than I used to be able to do, sitting there, laying there, can't turn your brain off at bedtime.
Let's talk about that a second, because that is why people are not sleeping. And America is the most sleep-deprived nation on earth. I mean, we are really just, if you're not getting proper sleep, you might as well just plan on having Alzheimer's. That is your time for your brain to rest and re-heal itself. That is now proven in science, okay? That's you've got to have your rest. But you're not taking time to dump your energy from watching the news before you go to bed, or watching CSI and some horrible show about how to decapitate a human and get away with it. The things we put into our brain. Now, when you're sitting in the school line and stuff, I want to advocate for silence. You know, I think it's David Russell who talks about we have noise everywhere in our society. And even if you're in an elevator, they got a pipe in the funky music. And at the grocery store,
I hate that about the doctor's offices and the dentist's office. They always got a TV in there going,
TV, man. Oh, my God. And what is it always on? The news.
Crap, yeah.
It's always on the news, or talk show crap, right? Again, stuff I don't need. So use your earbuds and this beautiful device, which I harp on as being awful, but it's when you use it right. When I'm going to the grocery store tonight, I'm going to put in my earbuds. I'm going to put in my chill selection from Spotify, and I'm just going to go through the store and not let anything bother me. Yeah. Instead of picking up all that energy from other people.
You said meditate with your children. I can't overstate that or state that more either. But another super powerful tool is to meditate with your partner. You know, you want to deepen your connection with your partner. Meditate together. You know, that group meditation that I did back then was so cool. We all vibed like a tribe, man. You know, because there's one of my favorite memes. There's a Winnie the Pooh meme that says, they say nothing is impossible, but I do a little bit of nothing every day. And I need that nothing in my life. And it's funny. It's interesting to think about how hard it is to get people to meditate. And what I'm asking you to do, actually, it's some level I'm asking you to sit down and do nothing. And you're refusing to comply.
Just for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Not even that long.
Yeah. And people, I can't do it. You can't just sit still. And I get it, because I was a newcomer too, and my mind would not stand still.
People don't like this word, but you're going to hear this a lot in this podcast. We are programmed by technology.
Yeah.
I was listening to these kids talking about the role of technology in their life. Not only, we already knew, they were taking 200 pictures to find the right one to post, and they're photoshopping that one. Guy was saying, I'd never put anything out there. It's not fixed. I'm not going to put one of those out there. But one of them was talking about the 15-minute window between shows on Netflix, with that little circle going. And it's that anxiety, like, I got to press next episode. I got to watch the next episode. It's almost gone. I got to get it. They're doing that by design. They're speeding up and running your life. Your notifications on your phone, all your dings and chimes, that's telling you when to pick it up.
Yep.
Take that power back. Breathing is a way to really step outside what we call normal life and question whether you want that to be your normal life. I mean, we live in the freest country in the world, supposedly. And what that means is you're allowed to choose your own destiny in the way the level of peace you want to work at. One of my most inspiring stories I remember hearing was about Monet, and he did his vaulted water garden series, which he's known for the most, while World War II was crashing just miles away from France. But he's literally in his garden painting the water gardens, his best work of his career, not being affected by world affairs.
Yep.
It's your choice.
You know, and those long, in the beginning, those 20-minute ones when I was new is probably a little much for me, actually.
Sure.
And I tell my guys when they're new, I have a 3-minute one that I've had bookmarked on YouTube.
That's awesome.
That's just the third step prayer said very calmly and quietly, and it's like 3.5 minutes or something. And I was like, just sit quiet and listen to that. That'll be you're doing your third step prayer in the morning, and just start small. And if you can't do 3 minutes, do 2, but just start small and just increase it to what you need. Like I said, I used to meditate for longer periods of time than I do today. Mm-hmm. I don't do those marathon sessions anymore. I don't really need it. I found my sweet spot.
So again, it's about finding what works for you, but I cannot advocate enough for this particular breathing technique.
I like it.
It's
new to me, man.
It's physiologically changes you. You can feel your physiological body just settling down.
Yep, I agree.
It's the easiest to learn, and you can do it anywhere. So just take it through your week and see what happens. And let us know back on the podcast your adventures with meditation and stuff. We love to hear your comments and questions and your own journey with that. You can find us again at IAM12 word recovery, IAM12 recovery at gmail.com. And let us know how you're doing. Let us know what's going on in your life with meditation. Any last thoughts about today's topic, Dan?
One last thing, you talked about the bottom of that breath, and this is just a parallel in another universe where that's used at, is when you're shooting long-range accuracy, like rifles and stuff, that's what they're hunting for. When you want to trip the trigger, is coming down off of that bottom of the breath, because there's that moment of stillness in there, like these snipers that shoot 1,000 yards. Your heartbeat can actually move the gun, and there's a spot right in there where you are 100% still.
Powerful. And here's the craziness. Most guys I meet will think, well, that's sissy stuff. Who does meditation? Fact of the matter is, not only do marksmen and top SEALs and Marines, they practice breathing, but athletes and Olympians. There is nobody in the NFL that's not practicing meditation. They have this show on HBO where they'll follow a team every year, and it was the Jets last year. And they showed the Jets doing a meditation, just they're all sitting there breathing. What do you think their engine runs on? If they don't have full capacity of their breath, they are not going to beat the other guy to the goal line.
Yep.
So this is real stuff, folks. I'm going to throw one more on there. Who died during the pandemic? We know now. People who had diminished lung capacity. That included people with asthma, lung issues, and overweight issues. People who were out of shape, people who didn't exercise. The people who had diminished lung capacity ended up on ventilators, body was more stressed, and then the virus was able to take them out sometimes. So if you want to expand your health, and especially when you're exercising, I try to be real conscious about getting deep breaths and expanding my lungs. Do you know the original yoga that's all it was about? It was not about the Vinyasa flow. How do you say it?
Vinyasas.
Vinyasa flows, that's right. It wasn't about the Vinyasa flows. The original yoga over 100 years ago was about sitting in position and focusing.
1,000 years ago.
Well, I don't know.
You said 100.
I know. That's what I was taught.
Well, okay.
Was it longer than that?
Oh, man. This is old stuff, man.
The movements, though?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe 1,000 years ago. But it was about yogis sitting in position and just breathing their capacity, just expanding. And it drives better health. Mm-hmm. It really does. All right. So great topic. I hope you all enjoyed that. We enjoyed bringing it to you. So every week on the podcast, we have 3 sections. We do a topic, then we have discussion, and then we like to do letters brought to you from you, the viewers, on any topic you have in life that's causing you trouble. You want a little free advice. I'm in a role here, not so much as a professional, although I will bring all of my professional training. And I just finished a training recently. I have to do these as part of my license every year, so I'm getting cutting-edge information. But mostly as a member of recovery for 40 years, and that experience, strength, and hope, and all the teachers that have come in and out of my path, I get a chance to share that with others today, and it's my greatest joy. So please send us questions to the IAM12recovery@gmail.com, IAM12recovery@gmail.com, and we will be happy to address it. All right, we have a couple of good questions for today. One is brought to me by a very dear friend of mine who's having some medical issues right now, so we'll save that for last. First question is very short, but it's a great one. It says this: I am 10 months sober. excuse me, and I am almost finished with my 12 steps. Congratulations. That's an amazing achievement. Very few people complete the entire process. So you're about to get all the rewards. And as my friend Dan and I would always remind you, make sure you do step 12. That's the one people neglect to do. Pass on the message. Just out of curiosity, what is your favorite step? I'm going to ask Dan this too. What is your favorite step and why? And has this changed throughout your recovery journey? All right, so I went from a guy who was like this when it came to talking about God when I came in because of the destructive and what I now call abusive programming I got from my family's church growing up. I was lucky not to be sexually abused, but I feel like they ruined me when it came to God because they taught me about fear, guilt, and shame. And none of that has any place in my relationship with my own Creator. Please check out our episode on Step 3. It's going to break next week. You'll learn more about that one next week. Back up. We're going to be ahead of time, but you'll see it's after the Step 2 podcast. So Step 3 slowly became my favorite step, and I would recognize that when I'd go to a meeting, they say, well, we're going to talk about gratitude tonight. And I'd be like, ugh. And they say, we're going to talk about Step 2 tonight. And I'd be like, oh, because there's not much to those steps. But I wanted to hear other people's journey about finding out what their spirituality was, what worked for them, things they tried they didn't like, and adventures they had had that were outside the box. And I never was exposed to that. When, I grew up in a church system where everything was like very strict. And I used to have an old spiritual teacher who would say, just follow the line. Don't look left. Don't look right. Those are works of the devil. Just do exactly what you're told. That's the way she was raised too. And so to have this environment where people were saying, oh man, I went on this retreat and tried this crazy thing and it really was amazing, inspired me to do the same. And I've had some of my greatest experiences spiritually. I got to spend 10 days with the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan monks who were traveling the nation to raise money for Tibet, but they would chant. And being present for them, they did this recording of them down in the Abbey of Gethsemane, which we have in Bardstown, Kentucky. So here, if you can imagine, it's the oldest Trappist monk monastery in North America. And we're in this gigantic cathedral, tall ceilings, and they've got their instruments out and their horns, and they're chanting. And this one guy named Tashi, he was the lead monk. I swear to God, he had the most beneficent smile. It would just touch your soul and make you smile. I've got to show Dan pictures of this eventually. I've been meaning to for many years. But he would go, I mean, he gets that deep rolling. And that apparently it stimulates their pineal gland, and they get a little bit of a high when they do that deep chanting. And then they get the cacophony of the instruments going, and it sounds like controlled chaos, and it's bouncing off the walls. And I had a transcendental experience, feeling like I was in Tibet, having a genuine, I don't even know how to explain it. Like when I sat with the Dalai Lama for a week and I'm staring at him and he's like 20, 30 feet in front of me, and I saw his face change as he was talking about the sacred document, the sacred text, and he's teaching us. But I saw his face like morphing, and it looked like the Dalai Lama 12 and Dalai Lama 10. It looked like the former Dalai Lamas. And I was like, dude, I am not high, but I'm seeing this man's face change right before my eyes. And again, it just opens up our mind that we don't know shit, and that there's a lot more out there if we'll just be open to trying new things. And so when I go to meetings and I hear the third step talked, I always wanted to hear other people share about, what are you doing? What's your adventure with the third step? And I want it to be an adventure, guys. So many people have had their faith ruined by spiritual institutions, religions, whatever. But it's about going on an adventure for yourself to see what is cool about life. A lot of people talk about Anthony Bourdain, and he was one of us. And he traveled the world and met new people and had adventures, and that was his spirituality. He was very open about that was a spiritual experience for him through food and getting to know new other cultures. Why couldn't you have that as part of your spirituality? You got to really open your mind. So for me, step 3 was really my favorite step for the longest time. But I think that's changed now as I've become a so-called old timer. I think step 12 is now my favorite step, because step 12 used to be about taking people through the steps individually, which I still do when somebody wants to go to a deeper level. I work with newcomers all day long, so I tend to shy away from newcomers sponsoring at the moment. just works better for my mental health. I can't deal with that all day long and have it in my life afterward. If you're in the field, you understand. In fact, we're told in our field to cut back on our sponsoring because it'll drain you to be on the job, but I don't do that. It works for me. And but being given opportunities to do something like this, which is a 12-step, you may not know that, but when we're being of service to bring you this free information and free experience to see if it will help you at all. And there's no expectation of anything in return. We just do it freely out of our own hearts. My sponsor, Dr. Burns Brady, was called to speak all over the country, and his recordings can be found on YouTube. He would do medical lectures in front of professional bodies all the time, and those are on YouTube. And he got an opportunity because of his experience and because of his ability to be a good speaker to just help a lot of people. And so the sky's kind of the limit with Step 12. It's not just how you carry the message with your sponsee, but how you carry the message throughout your day. I talked about earlier about the nurse giving me that compliment. How are you with your coworkers, your family, your pets, your community? To me, Step 12 is now one of my favorite steps in terms of what can we do next? Because I always talk about in recovery, you should be looking for the more and the better. And if you're currently in recovery and you feel a little dry, I want you to know that more and better is very much available. I will share that on a later podcast about how at 18 years sober, my whole life changed by getting new teachers. But that's kind of where I'm at with it, that more and better, and seeing what we can do with this podcast to help as many people as possible. The feedback's been great. We've been getting feedback with a lot of people saying the same thing I hear in class most of the time. Like, it's the same stuff they may have heard elsewhere, here and there, heard a little bit over in this podcast or a little bit over here, but you're putting it together in one package, and the way you're putting it together is different than I've heard it before. And that's all anybody can do as a teacher. I'm going to tell you, there's nothing new in this world. It's about repackaging it to your own experience and presenting it in a different way. And everybody's like, oh, you're a genius. No, I just had great teachers that gave me good stuff, and I'm just a messenger to pass it through. It's never about me and my ego. So that's my favorite step now, is Step 12. Dan, what do you say about your journey with what's your favorite step?
I was kind of giggling because I probably would say just almost exactly what you said. I love taking a person through Step 3, and from the God stuff to your own conception to through the stuff about, this decision to start acting in a different way. We're just going to make a decision. We're not, and I just love all that. But that's actually Step 12. Doing that is Step 12 work. I will add, because I usually do, that Step 8 probably had a bigger impact on my day-to-day walk in the practicing the forgiveness in Step 8 and just who I am. And I still feel that way, that forgiveness was not a strong suit of mine. And through this practice, just like we talked about earlier, meditate. How do you get good at anything? You practice it. And practicing forgiveness has changed the way I move through the world.
Giving you a deeper compassion that people are flawed and they're just doing the best they can. And as I told the patients in my group today, 90% of what's happening every day and around you isn't about you. Now, we interpret, they're doing it to me, man. I know they're trying to get under my skin. No, man, people are in their own world. They got their own worries and own stuff they're dealing with. And we're all just doing the best we can with our programming. Some people's programming is really fucked up. Mm-hmm. So they're only doing the best they can. If a guy's out there hurting people or doing things that society says you need to go to prison for, well, 9 times out of 10, he had a pretty crappy childhood.
Yep, I would have to say that for the most part, what looks like evil is truly spiritual sickness. It's really that. Now, there is some evil, I do believe, but I think most of what looks like evil is training. They've had a crappy upbringing, and they're just reflecting that.
We'll have an episode on that spiritual sickness. It has nothing to do with religion. It's about your essence. You go to a person, you say, you got a spiritual sickness or you got a soul sickness, and they're like, what are you talking about? Because people are sketchy about words. It's all about our programming, right? That word means something based on what you were taught. But if you say, what about your essence? Do you think you have an essence deep inside? And they're like, well, of course, something. Yeah, I feel that. Intuition, something. Okay. Well, that's gotten corrupted because of the world we just talked about. You can't live in this world and not be changed by it. I'd say to my patients a lot, I say, if you don't understand how effed up your entire life is with this bad energy you're absorbing every day, take your dog or your cat with you to the plant that most of my patients work in. Let them be with you all day long in that loud-ass environment with all the people yelling at each other and things dropping and breaking and loud noises, machinery and fluorescent lights. And then watch after 30 days if your dog's not doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It'll show signs of PTSD in a very short time. And we walk through this world and think that's normal. It's normal to go into a Circle K and have another person yelling at another person over some stupid crap. And it's just street people or whatever, just stuff you're dealing with. And you're just like, well, I don't need that energy in my life. But we're around it all the time. You can't escape it. And then we'll tune into the TV to watch more of that kind of energy, right?
Yep. Well, as we say, the systems and institutions of this world, it's just crazy to have to engage with most of them. Mm-hmm. You know, me and you talk about it all the time. You know, when you got to call the insurance company, or you've got to, you know, you must engage with these certain things that circus music plays in the back of my brain when I'm doing it. Because sometimes it's just unreal.
It can be little or it can be large, but I got a little thing right now where I have asked my doctor for a referral, which she said she gave me and she's happy to give me. And the secretary calls me and says, okay, we sent the referral over, but we weren't sure about the fax number. I'm like, look it up. What the hell? I called the number myself. It says on the recording before you get through, our fax number is blah, 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 right? So she said, so if it doesn't work, let me know. I said, okay, great, appreciate it. I called them. We can't find you. Yeah, it figures. What's your fax number? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. I called them on Friday. Now, granted, it was before Memorial Day. I said that on the message. I'm a nice guy. I'm a great customer. Hey, great. I know you're probably on vacation. When y'all get back next week, here's the new fax number. Send it here. I didn't get the referral. I need that. Thank you. Appreciate y'all. You're so great. Nothing. I heard nothing from them. Yesterday, I had to call them again. Hey, guys, I called the place. Because I called the place. They don't have it. They don't have it still. I'm sorry, sir. You're not in the system. And literally, these offices are just across the block from each other.
The left hand and the right hand.
It's what we all deal with every day. And what do you do with that energy? You got to get it off you. Exercise, talking to others, and breathing. Meditation. It works. All right, second question for today, and then we will wrap this one up. This comes from my good friend Darren, who's having a lot of medical issues right now. So please, folks, take care of yourself, because when the body gives out, it's not a pretty process. It's heartbreaking, actually, what this poor man is going through. And he's very honest. Darren is a straightforward Yoda. He tells straight truth, man. And this is the question he asked from his own experience. Why do people not follow directions? He said, this is asked by a person with 14 years of recovery, one day at a time. And this is asked by a person that even with the threat of my diabetes and losing my leg and all the assorted health problems I've been dealing with in and out of the hospital, it still didn't stop me and shut me up. Why do people not follow directions? Well, I happen to be an experienced person with this because I see this happen in my group every day. People will come to group, say they want help. You offer them the help. They won't take it. You say, here's where you need to go. They don't go. You say, you try this speaker online. All you got to do is turn on YouTube. They won't even do that. It is astounding that 1 minute a person's hair could be on fire. Please get me out of CPS. Please get me out of this 20-year jail sentence. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be doing this. I'll do anything for change. Next minute, I can't even get them to listen to a talk on YouTube while they clean their house. You don't even have to focus on it. Just turn on the radio while you're driving. They won't even do that. So it's my experience. And I used to hear this all the time when I first started out in recovery. I didn't understand it in terms of depth. Now, I think because of age and experience, and anybody that's older, I think you'll agree with this. The power of the human ego for damaging ourselves and for damaging this world is way beyond our understanding. Now, what is the human ego? A very crude description would be, it's that sense that I have a self that's separated from life, that is its own entity, that exists completely on its own, and it's not related or connected to what's going on in the rest of the world. It's the exact opposite. We're all part of a human web. As I tell my patients, it's like a spider web on the National Geographic. If the fly gets caught down here and the spider's way over here, just from the fly doing this, it'll go through the web and the spider will come down. That's social connections. That's what human beings have. That's what we all are, connected to each other. But it feels like I'm separate. It feels like I'm separate from Dan. It feels like I'm separate from my partner, whatever the thing is. But it's an illusion. We are connected. Everything I do affects them, and everything they do can affect me. So, but the ego also has this thing about being right. And it refuses to accept help, because if it were to accept help, it would have to admit that it was wrong, that it made a mistake, or it somehow didn't know something, or it wasn't right. I like the way Dan puts it sometimes, like, I have to always look like I know what I'm doing. That was one of his things he found out on his inventory about when he was a kid and stuff. And I was like, yeah, what I felt like was similar to that, is I felt like there was a camera on me all the time and I had to act perfect. And because I was trying to be perfect, it made me mess it up even more. So I'm trying to perfectly handle this glass, and I would knock it over and spill it over the whole table. And there'd be like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so uptight? I didn't even know. That was alcoholic stuff going on inside of me already. But the ego will always defend its turf, and it will. The joke Dan has is like, I can offer you a plate of chocolate chip cookies and they're warm and delicious, but you will refuse it because it's not your idea. And that's what the ego does. It has to come from me. I have to decide that I'm doing this. And so it's like, if I keep telling my patients to go to meetings, sometimes they'll buckle down and just not go because they're just not going to do it. It's a curse. And I've watched my friend Darren go through unbelievable tortures. He's lost his leg. First it was his toe, then his foot, and then his leg. He's had seizures. He's chipped a tooth out. He's lost his front tooth because of a seizure. His kidneys are so messed up, they say that they shifted in his body and they were bleeding. He's having continual UTIs, infections that they can't get under control. He's been on so many rounds of antibiotics, it's destroyed his gut, I'm sure. And it all stems from diabetes. And I told him, he went into a nursing home 4.5 years ago, folks. I mean, laying in a bed. That's like torture to me. Just please take me out and shoot me. Don't put me in a place for 4.5 years in a bed. And I told him back then, I said, Darren, please work with me as your sponsor, man. We got to get through this. We're going to work our upper body. We're going to do everything we can to get out of there. You need to go home. Even if it's your home, it's still better. You're with your wife, you're with your kids. And that's what he wanted more than anything in the world. And I love this man more than anything I can put into words. And the son of a bitch would sit up in there and drink Coca-Colas and eat all this crappy food. Sugar, sugar, sugar. And he knew it was killing him. That is the role of addiction. We're going to talk about that in the next podcast about food. That is the role of human nature, about habit and programming. And we do what we're familiar with, even if it doesn't work. I can't tell you how many people are right out there right now, in your own life, are smoking cigarettes and they're carrying an oxygen tank around with them. So I don't know if I know exactly why people don't do what they do, but I do know now that as an old timer, my heart breaks more than it ever has for them. I have more compassion for human beings and how flawed and vulnerable we are to repeating our patterns. And because of inventory, I can't recommend fourth and fifth step enough. It's humbled me so that if I start pointing that finger at anybody else, I immediately feel all those other fingers pointing back at me, because I know that I've got my own stuff that I do too. None of us are perfect. But we can learn from each other, and I know that Darren's lesson to me that he's teaching me is more compassion for others, patience and tolerance, and I better start taking better care of myself, because I don't ever, ever want to end up in that position. So don't miss our next episode about food. It's going to be eye-opening for you, I promise. I'd like to hear your thoughts a little bit, Dan, about why you've had your struggles with sponsees. Why do people not follow directions?
Yeah, I would really like to know the answer to that, and I follow with you completely about, it's a Yoda mind trick kind of thing is to get people to think it's their idea. And sometimes that does work. You can drop some cookie crumbs and hopefully they'll pick them up. And that's when, I wouldn't, what Scott Lee said, I had a revelation. You know what a revelation is, don't you? It's when I've been listening to you tell me what to do for 6 months, and then I decide to do it.
And then you come to your sponsor and you boast that you thought of the right thing to
Hey,
do.
you know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to work these steps. And I have people, that do that. I've heard those very words out of people who I watch refuse to do the work. Refuse it. They come to meetings, they bounce in and out, they do all this, and then they'll come and they'll say, man, I've decided I'm going to work these steps. like they thought of that. And, but the best thing to do is just let them think they thought. That's the most fruitful thing to do, is just allow them to think that they did it. But that ego thing, whatever it is in there that I need to, I think another thing is like this control thing we have. I need to feel like I'm in control. Where I got to feel like
That's
I am driving. It's the old thing about the ant on a log in a river thinking he's steering it kind of thing. And that prevents me, recovery. I still suffer from all this stuff, but I mean, the amount of open-mindedness I have today compared to 10 years ago is mind-blowing on not just shutting down everything that comes to me. And you talked about that chocolate chip thing. That's a Bob Earl thing. How many times have somebody offered you something to drink and you say, no, I'm okay? And you're sitting there thirsty. You are. A bottle of water. You want a cup of coffee? No, thank you. I'm good. And just reject stuff out of hand. And what that is about us, that's the same kind of flavor about, you're not going to tell me, I guess, we revert into toddlers. It's the 3-year-old kid being told not to mess with that. And, you can't tell me what to do. We have to put our hand on the hot stove and get burned and find out for ourselves.
On top of that, we all have our conditioning that we're working out, and we don't even realize what our issues are from our parents and our grandparents. You've been talking to me about this waking up early thing and feeling like you're more productive, and you've been working on that if you want to talk on that. But I just thought of your dad. God bless him. But when you told me that story that he had his foot in a boot, and the doctor's telling him, now you need to stay off this freaking leg. Just stay off it. And next thing you know, your dad's out there cutting the grass or doing whatever he's doing. He's working through his stuff that he's taught as growing up, probably as a man. If you're not doing something, you don't have worth, or you're not productive, or whatever his message he got.
Yeah. I've got all that productivity issues wrapped up in me. I have to, and it's kind of like the one thing, I can't be caught not knowing what I'm doing. And I struggle with that still, even in my jobs and stuff. Now I'm getting better, like I said. And today I will actually tell my people, I don't know how to do that, but I bet if I'll YouTube it real quick, I'll figure it out, and that's something that I wouldn't have been able to do in the past because I'd have been admitting that I was wrong. And if I'm not, I've read a thing the other day about this. They called it productivity debt. And we operate like we're in some of us, and I do, productivity debt from the time I wake up in the morning. And I can't take a break all day long because I'm chasing this invisible thing, that my mind is telling me if I just check this off the list, and if I just check that off the list, and I just check this off the list, I'll catch up with that debt. But it's an impossible debt to catch up on. Mm-hmm. And, I operate like that. That really made a lot of sense to me when I read it. I actually posted it on our board, and a whole bunch of people said, "Oh man, that's me. That's me."
And what I've experienced in recovery, the opposite of that is, what got done, and I'm okay with that.
Yep.
And that was rare. I couldn't do that before.
Right.
But because of recovery, it's like you accept there's only so many hours in a day.
And just hang it
and
up.
You want to do everything, but you can't do everything. So you just do what you can.
Yeah, I practice it before we do these recordings because I don't want to. I'm working in the shop, and I don't want to come flying, the Tasmanian devil flying in here getting ready. I want some cushion. That's one of the things that I've done in my recovery is I have planned these cushions between my activities so that I'm not just jumping from one to the next all day long. Have some change that I change my channel. I change the station between doing this and moving into this. And that's really been a super good thing for me to do. I started really with the podcast, doing it. I wanted that cushion because I didn't want the day's intensity and all the stuff I'm dragging in from whatever I've been doing today to be dragging into the podcast. And so I would change the channel like that. You said that I listened to a really good podcast today about this gal who is doing family of origin stuff and about how important. She made a statement at some point. She said, if you are not looking at that, you might as well not be doing any work.
Agreed.
Said if
the
you're
guy
not
that did this seminar and the body keeps the score, and I said we are not talking about the family enough. Everything happened to you in the first. Some neuroscientists say the first 2 years. I get that, but I really believe it's the first 10.
Yeah, I heard
I'll give you the first 10. You have pretty much been conditioned of what you're going to accept for a relationship, how much money you're going to accept to make, what job, what zip code you're going to live in. All that shit has been programmed into you, and your ego will tell you that you're making that decision entirely on your own.
Yep.
Coke or Pepsi, you're deciding. McDonald's or Burger King, really?
Yep.
With the amount of commercials you've seen, which one do you think is going to win out?
Yep. The mold has been cast. And,
If you've got kids,
what kind of
McDonald's
food
has the Happy Meal.
Yep. What kind of food you like and dislike? All this stuff that that's been pretty much trained into you.
Politics, all that stuff.
Yep. Yep.
Church,
we like
all
to think
that
we're
stuff.
our own person, but
Nope. But recovery is the game changer.
It is.
With inventory, I can put that on paper and I can examine it with my sponsor and see if I want that to be a part of my future journey. You get to decide.
Yep.
That's true adulthood, folks. That's emerging out of childness, of not letting other people control you like that.
There was a whole exercise in the Mankind Project. It was, I get to choose. And it's a big, long thing about, trying to defeat that training involvement that today's different. I don't have to do my old behavior today. I get to choose to do something different. And recovery is a pinnacle kind of thing like that, because when I'm not going to use today, and I do. We're powerless, and I get that, but at some level too, I got to just not pick up today.
And I need to use my tools.
Yep.
Just use your tools.
Yep.
That's it. So thank you. Appreciate that. Learned some things about my friend I didn't know. Some of that, actually. So, again, we love your questions. Please bring them into us. We're offering this as a free service to the world. How often can you get anonymous advice and suggestions? And we're not going to identify you. Just anything that's going on in your life, send it to iam12recovery@gmail.com. And if it's not on there immediately, hang in there, because we got some episodes in the can. And we will get you addressed while you're here. So thank you for joining us, everybody. I hope you found this helpful for yourself. Tell other people in your life about the podcast. Tell them about meditation tools if that's helpful. And to help us on our mission to raise our algorithms within YouTube so that we can get seen by more people, please like, subscribe, comment. We love your comments. Anything will help us to get a little bit more attention so that it'll show up on people's rotation. It's really hard to get on those recommended lists, and we're just starting out, so we are like buried under tons of other content.
The amount of content
people
that
cannot
gets
find
created
us
every day is phenomenal.
Yeah. And then when they find us, I think they'll like some of what we have, and we can spread more of this message to more people. So please help us with that if you can. All right, so we like to wrap up our program with the Serenity Prayer, like we do all over the world at meetings. Some people end with Our Father, but we end with the Serenity Prayer here. We may have done the Our Father in the past, but I think we're going to do our Serenity Prayer from now on. And then we'll do it this way we do it in my group, which is a little bit of fun at the end, just to not take ourselves so seriously. So, Dan, if you'd like to join me.
Yep.
Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today. Keep coming back. It works if you work it, and you die if you don't. Woo-hoo! Come back, see us. We love you. Peace out.